Hello everyone, Richard Fredrickson once again with you. Yes, this is Profiles, but it's a special Profiles. We're going to call this one A Journey of Hope. And before I begin, I want to make a couple clarifications. This program is not going to be for medical advice as a Parkinson's patient. It is a one man's journey of hope. Clay Johnson, who I'll introduce in just a moment. He's from Joliet, Illinois, a Parkinson's patient on a special trial, and we're about to share it with you. Welcome, Clay.
Good morning, Richard.
It's good to have you here. We are talking in Joliet, Illinois right now. This is 2024 and the month of October. Just for clarification, you may be watching this in December or March of 2025, whenever. The information is current and the story is interesting. A little bit of a bio on Clay Johnson. Who are you, young man?
Well, I was born in a little town in Iowa called Keokuk, Iowa. Moved here to Joliet in the mid-'70s, working for Crescent Electric. I was in the electrical business for 50 years before I retired at the end of 2019. I was partnered with some other guys that we would repower big electric motors, up to 10,000 horse. So I had the opportunity to travel, see a lot of the country and some of the world.
Yeah. Now, I believe when I met you, you were running around with electricity for the big concert.
Break-in at the prison.
At the break-in at the old
Joliet prison. Yep.
And we were able to watch the Blues Brothers because of your electricity, your lighting system. So that's Clay Johnson. He has another story for you, and I want to frame it first. Give us a little bit, if you can, what is Parkinson's? What in the world is this?
Parkinson is a disease that can either be environmental, which would be like the Agent Orange or the weed killers that they used to use a lot of, or it can be genetic. And in my case, it is genetic because it impacts your ability to move. You get shakes. I have shortness of breath, have problems on times with doing certain fine motor skill things. So the history for me is that my grandmother, my dad's mom in the 60s, she shook and they called that palsy because they didn't know what Parkinson was then. It appears that grandma passed that gene on to my dad. And each one of us had a 50-50 chance of not having both sides of the genes. And in our case, every one of the 6 of us only got 1/2 of the gene called GBA. And that gene creates Parkinson onset in the mid-60s. So all 6 of my brothers and sisters, including myself, have some form of Parkinson.
Yeah.
Some are impacted more heavily than I am.
So, generally speaking, Parkinson's disease sets in somewhere, not always, but usually, somewhere in your 60s. But then you have the Michael J. Fox, who was, I don't know when he was, 40 years old,
Right.
5 years old. It can be younger too.
Right. If it's earlier than 60s, it's called early onset. If it's 60 and older, it's late onset.
Oh.
So we're all late onsets.
So, do they also say that medicine, surgery, can also help treat and improve the quality of life for Parkinson patients?
There is a procedure called deep brain stimulus, DBS, and they put 2 electrodes in your head, bring it down to a battery pack here, and you can adjust the current of those electrodes, which allows you to function with less meds. So my youngest brother has that operation done.
Yeah. So he did have the operation?
Yes.
And was it somewhat successful?
Somewhat, but not as much as he had hoped.
Yeah. Now the other 5 of the Well, you're the sixth, right?
Yes.
There's 6 of you. So the other ones, have they had any treatment, any surgeries, any help yet with their?
We're all on different assortment of medication
Okay.
to dampen down the shaking that we have on a continual basis.
So prior to June 1st of this year, 2024, what medications were you on, or were you on any at all?
I am on a medication called carbidopa. I take 7 tablets a day. 2 when I get up, it's about 6 o'clock, 2 more at 9:30, 2 more at 12:30, and 1 at 5:30. So every 90 days I'm getting 630 tablets, and I consume 630 every 90 days.
Okay. Aside from the Parkinson's, is there side effects from that medicine as well?
Yeah, the meds are somewhat caustic to the body, and so there are occasions where it just hits me so bad that I can't even function. I just have to sit for about a half hour and let that settle down, and then I can get up and go again.
Yeah. So we don't have to travel very far back for this. I hope I've set the scene for you. You see a Parkinson patient sitting before you right now. If you look closely, you don't see any tremors.
I medicate well.
You certainly do. I might also mention that this man is a friend of mine, so anyway. June 1st, was that 2024?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So on June 1st, well, wait a minute, who referred you to the hospital for this injection? How did you get there?
Well, that's part of the big story too, Richard, is that I started my journey trying to figure out if I had Parkinson about 6 years ago. And with my GP, he put me through every kind of test he could think of to eliminate everything else. And I finally got a neurologist here in Joliet. She could not determine whether I had Parkinson, so she sent me on to a second referral. That second referral was Rush. And within 15 minutes of me meeting my new neurologist, she had me enrolled in a genetic study. And that's really where this journey begins at. Okay. Because that study showed that I had a deficiency in GBA gene. So my oldest brother then took that same test, showed that he was also deficient with that same gene. That opened up the opportunity for the entire family to get together and take this test for free, which we did in July of 2019. All 6 of us came back showing that we had deficiency in the GBA gene, but there was an additional gene attached to that they had very, very rarely ever seen. In fact, when they reported the results of our family test on the globe, there was only one other person in the world that had that combination.
And?
Well, it's got to be related to some way. Yeah. You know, I don't know how, whether one of my uncles had a wild fling and a love child out there, who knows. Yeah. But it was those tests that we took that Big Pharma bought those results, looking for people to be enrolled in this research.
Yeah. So that injection on June 1st, you're admitted to the hospital. What did that consist of?
The injection is done by one individual. He's the only one licensed to do this. They lay it down on your stomach. The injection's going to go between the top of your spine and your brain. There's a small sac of fluid. And with a CT camera, they can guide that needle exactly where that fluid is at. The injection is simply a single virus shell that's packed with thousands of both sides of the gene. They put it inside that sac, and then they tell you, go home, rest, and see what your body will absorb.
So you get this injection, and they tell you just to go home and rest.
Yeah, but they're checking me every week.
Yeah.
I'm in the clinic every week, and they'll take as much as 24 vials of blood from me.
Wow.
But it's a 5-year commitment. They're looking for 20 people worldwide. They've done this research on 8 people already. 5 improved, 3 did not. They took it offline, refined the process and how they make this gene, and I'm the first person in the world to get version 2.
You're the one.
I am the only one right now. So they're still looking for 11 more people.
So you're back every week?
Well, for the first 2 months, I stayed in Philadelphia.
Okay.
They put me up in a apartment because they also lower your immunity to do this. They don't want your body to attack that virus shell. So they lower the immunity, and I had to kind of isolate.
Yeah, how do they do that?
Yeah, it's an infusion. Yeah, it's a small bag that they put in my arm. And
How do you weather that? I mean, how do you feel during that period of time when you've got you in a point where you don't have a lot of immunity?
I felt good. The day after, the next 24 hours after that immunity transfusion, it hypes me up. I can't sleep. So that's the only bad thing about that. But I'm now off of all of that, and I'm just back to my normal routines.
Wow. So let's continue with the timetable here a little bit. So on July 2nd, is that July 2nd of 2024 or 2023?
24.
Okay. So this summer, you know, that wasn't that far away. You had your first exam off meds.
Yes. They asked me to be.
What was the reaction of your doctor in that examination?
Well, let me step back just one bit.
Sure.
To be accepted into the program, I had to come in on April 25th off meds.
Okay.
And I did not function well. I had problems walking. I had problems talking. I couldn't sit still. It was just, it's a lot of pressure. And I don't know how to describe it otherwise, being off meds. But on July 2nd, the first time after my injection off meds, I was very confident that I was doing okay. I had no issues with walking. I could pass almost every test they gave me as if I was medicated to about 90–95%. And it shocked the doctor completely.
I would imagine so.
He didn't believe that it was real. He told me at the time he thought it was a placebo effect.
Really?
Yeah. And they're still not sure because I'm the only one in the world that's had this version. What to expect?
So you outperform their expectations.
Yes.
It's interesting how scientists and researchers react to that. I mean, we obviously know they react to something negative,
Right.
but shock and surprise that something like this is taking place so far.
His comment was basically, is this too good to be true?
Too good to be true. So now you are seeing, this is Rush Hospital in Chicago, correct? Rush?
Yes. Rush is also my main hospital for Parkinson.
Okay. So you see doctors what? Every
6 months.
6 months now. Not every other month, not every
Nope.
other week, every 6 months. So where are we at? How far away are we right now in October for your next visit?
My last visit was August of this year. And they test me on meds at every visit. The visit 6 months before August, my number that they rated me was 12. The higher the number, the worse off you are. Parkinson people will hit a plateau and they'll stay stable for a bit of time, but they always continue to climb a little bit. My number last August went from 12 down to a 9.
Interesting.
And I think they independently validated the research that the University of Pennsylvania is doing to me.
Let me ask you this. Was it the same doctor, or did you have 2 doctors checking this out, or 3 doctors? Or?
In this case, this last visit to Rush, I had 2 neurologists that I had never worked with before. They independently tested me, and they came up with the same number.
So you mentioned earlier that this is a 5-year commitment. And so what is the goal?
The goal is reduce the amount of meds that I take every day. The goal is hopefully that the genes that they put in me will start making the dopamine and the chemicals that I need so I can take less meds, and the impact on my body will be lessened. It's just if I'm stepping back in time 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah. So all six of you, is that brothers and sisters, or?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
4 boys, 2 girls.
The next generation coming up is going to be affected as well, correct?
Yes, some of the next generation took the test with us, and it appears that as many as 70 to 75% of them are going to be impacted and are going to need something like I'm doing. And we don't know about grandkids yet. They were all too young to take the test. So this is 5 generations that have been suffering Parkinson. My grandmother, my dad, us, my kids, and potentially grandkids, 6 generations.
Yeah. So in those early days of your grandfather and your father, there really wasn't much they could do or did
No.
do for that disease, especially since they were calling it palsy.
Right. Dad was never diagnosed because he passed her at 64. But he showed signs that it was coming on.
By the way, but this testing of the siblings as well as you, this has been free so far?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Can you imagine? You can't imagine what the cost would be for this.
For the standard genetic test, it's about $400.
That's it. I mean, that's
That's just the
informative for
test.
people watching.
Right.
So you had a person who administered the test. There's kind of an interesting twist to that. Actually, sort of a member of the family.
Well,
One of those tests.
right. The person that administered our genetic test to the family was the wife of my nephew, which is my oldest brother's son.
Okay.
She worked for a genetic testing company, and she administered all those and reported it to the web, wherever. But unfortunately, 18 months after we did the test, she got laid off.
Yeah.
Another little twist here. She changed her work email address to her personal email address. 4 years later, Big Pharma found it and wrote her an email saying, this family that you administer the test to could be eligible for this test, for this research. Please reach out and see if they are interested. So that's, it's a long shot even getting that email from Big Pharma.
Right. Right. In the fall of 2023, get
That's
some clarification on that. What happens in the fall of 2023?
That's when the email arrived from Big Pharma. We may want you. And so once they informed me of who and sent me a copy of that email, I started calling that individual. And I finally got through to that individual. And they then sent me into the University of Pennsylvania for examination. So it's an independent research facility. The university acts on behalf of Big Pharma to do this research.
Very fortunate, blessing, lucky that you were accepted into that program.
Oh my God. It's just a blessing beyond being able to detail.
So, for the folks who are watching this and who have a member of their family or themselves or neighbors, when I think back on it, when I talk with you about this, and I talk with my wife, and we discuss the many people through our lives who've had this, and then you watch what Michael J. Fox personally has done and his foundation reaching out to people, is most of what if you know this, I don't know what his foundation does. Do you know what the Michael J. Fox Foundation do for the folks?
They are involved in so many different research programs that they're too numerous to detail. But his foundation is one of the most active in the globe in trying to find a cure for Parkinson.
Yeah. There's probably someone watching this right now who is saying, well, that's really great for Clay Johnson, but I think it's too late for me. You know, I'm 67 or 68 or 54 or 45, and I'm sure, and I'm going to ask you this is not only physical, this is very mental, I would begin.
Yes. Yes, I just lost my oldest brother about a month and a half ago to Parkinson, but it was because his dementia got so bad. So it'll impact you, as you say, physically, but there's a mental aspect to it. At Rush, as soon as I was diagnosed, I was also set up with a psychiatrist because a lot of Parkinson people go into deep depression once they get that diagnosis. I've come to the realization that you have to fight. I fight every day to hold on to what I have, not let this disease take any more from me than it already has.
The people that you know, I'm sure you have colleagues who have this, and plus your family members. What advice would you give them in terms of going back to work, or finding some profession, or finding some kind of work, or finding some kind of volunteer work, something to do other than sitting and waiting between doctors, or between hoping and wishing or giving up?
This disease wants you to sit down and die, quite literally. So you have to stay up, you have to keep moving. I volunteer my time to a couple different organizations just to have to go do things. I have a boxing program that I do 3 days a week called Rock Steady Boxing.
Tell me about this.
This is just for Parkinson people, and it helps improve my balance, my core strengths, but primarily it's a social gathering of other Parkinson people, and we ask, well, I'm doing this, how are you solving this problem?
Right.
So it's a chance to interact with other Parkinson patients, and that's probably the best thing about it.
So if this will end up on YouTube, so they're watching in California, Texas, Washington, Pennsylvania, wherever. Are you aware of assistance or Parkinson's outreach for people almost in every state? Is there some place they can go to get information to assist, particularly with people who are just being diagnosed?
Right. Rock Steady Boxing is part of that Michael J. Fox Foundation umbrella. And so generally in every major city, you're going to find some kind of organization like that you should get involved with.
Wow. Personally, do you have any advice that you would want to share with the folks watching us right now?
If you have Parkinson, see your neurologist, get on your medications, don't miss your meds. You have to take them every day. That is critical. If you start playing games where, oh, I don't think I need it today, you're only making the situation worse.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly sorry about your brother. Your other siblings, are they in the mode of handling this, managing this, or not?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
There are a couple that I wish they were doing better jobs managing their issues, and there are a couple that are doing okay with it. So everybody's different.
Yeah. You mentioned you volunteered at a couple of organizations. We're going to give them some publicity here.
All right.
What are those organizations?
Well, there's a little building in downtown Joliet called the Rock and Roll Museum. That's for Illinois Rock and Roll Museum. And I spend some time down there helping him out with different projects around there. And then there's another organization called Brats, Bourbon, and Brews.
Yes.
And we have an event one time a year where we raised $25,000 last year to buy service dogs for vets. And we're doing it again this year, October 22nd. So.
And that's almost every October of every year. So no matter when you're watching this, just look for it in October of whatever year you're watching this. Clay, thank you so much for taking time out, sharing this information with our viewers. And we're going to continue with more of this type of interviews. Profiles continues here on Channel 6 and YouTube. I want to thank Channel 6 and their team and the wonderful people who will be on that list to make it possible for us to share these stories with you. Road to Eternity Studios, their staff, and the great people behind there always do a great, professional, wonderful job in helping me, helping our guests share the story with you. So this is Profiles, and the name of this one is Journey of Hope. I'm Richard Fredrickson. We'll see you next time.